Welcome to another episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? And are you reading and writing out there? Please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Great books, books that you just love. Maybe you heard about a book on this show and you bought it and you read it because that's what we're hoping. I'm your host, Karen E. Osborne. I have a wonderful guest today. We've known each other now for about 2 years, maybe 3 years, 2 years, as writers, and I'm a fan. I have to admit that I'm a fan, and we're going to talk about her series, A.J. McCarthy's wonderful series, which I love reading, and can't wait to read her new one. So welcome, welcome, AJ.
Thank you for having me back, Karen.
Oh, I'm so delighted to see you. So I just have to read you guys this. This is AJ's bio on Amazon, and it just cracked me up. So I decided that I would share it with you. It says, as an author of mystery suspense novels, AJ McCarthy is always on the lookout for new ideas. Her friends and family are cautious, concerned they may become a victim in the next novel. Those who are more adventurous offer up ideas and are willing to sacrifice certain family members for the cause. AJ bides her time waiting for the right moment and the perfect victim. She hides behind a quiet, accountant like facade, and few know what she's really thinking. You just love that. My husband always says to me, careful what you say to her, you're going to end up in her novel. And this just tickled me. I'm just so glad to have you back. So we met you 2 years ago, and you had created this wonderful series. I'd read, there were books before that I read. Then you started this wonderful series, Charlie and Sims. And your latest comes out in 2 days, which is like, congratulations, congratulations. So before we dive into your new book, um, tell us a little bit about your protagonists. Who are Charlie and who is Sims?
Okay, well, Charlie and Sim, I had
Oh,
originally,
Sim, sorry.
Sim, yeah, I had originally introduced them in my novel Sins of the Fathers a few years back. He is a PI, and Charlie is a pub owner in downtown Montreal. And Charlie had hired Sim to work on a case because she was receiving mysterious packages. And so that's how they met. And I decided I liked the characters enough that I thought they should have a bit of a future. So they became a couple, and he became a partner in her pub business, and she took an interest in sticking her nose in his cases. So the following novel, The Other Side, is a case that they took on, and so it's a standalone case. They're all standalone cases, but with the same characters that work together. And I introduced new characters along the way who may or may not show up in subsequent novels. And then A Stranger in the Family is another case, the novel that's coming out soon. Uh, it's a case they've taken on. And usually their cases, they seem innocent enough and simple, and then they turn into something a bit more dramatic and dangerous.
Hmm. And dangerous, yes. So the new book, A Stranger in the Family, I was reading, I just pre-ordered it, and it comes out in 2 days. And it seemed like it had a very serious, though, kind of background. As I was reading it, it seemed, it's not that all of your books, the danger is real, but this one just felt like it was that you were making a statement or was more serious. I just wondered what your thoughts. So tell us a little bit about it
Okay.
and what's, yeah.
All right. So the story, A Stranger in the Family, is a story of a man who spent his entire childhood in an orphanage in Montreal. So from the 1950s into the 1960s, he was in this orphanage. And now he's in his 70s, and he thinks that he has found his real family. And he's approached them, and the family has hired Charlie and Sim to find out if it's real, if he really is a part of their family. So that's the basis of the story. Um, in reality, there were orphanages in the 1940s and 1950s in Quebec that it was during the time of Maurice Duplessis. He was the premier of the province during that period of time, and it was a dark period. It was so dark that they actually named the period the Great Darkness, because these orphanages, there were about 20,000 children who went through these institutions, and he decided that instead of being orphanages, they would be turned into mental asylums for these children, because the federal government would pay them more per child if they were considered mentally handicapped rather than just simply orphans. And there were reports of abuse, physical, mental, sexual abuse in these orphanages. And so that is the dark part of I didn't go into an awful lot of detail. I did touch on the history because the character in the story, Robert, he was there during that period of time in
Yeah,
those
so he lived it.
yes, in one of those orphanages. So
Wow.
that's the real, an actual historic part of the story.
Yeah. Wow. There's so many stories like that, especially among
Mm.
Indigenous people,
Yeah,
all over from
yes,
Australia, the US, Canada.
Canada. Yeah.
So did it take a lot of research? Did you have to do a lot of research for this book or not?
A certain amount, more so than I have done for other books, perhaps. Um, the whole idea of the story came from a conversation I had with two women that I was working with. One of them was adopted as a baby in the 1960s. She was adopted at 6 months old, so she didn't go through what these children went through, but I took an interest in her story, and it's very fascinating. She was in the process of looking for her birth parents. And so that led me into researching. She lives in Quebec City, where I live, but she had been adopted from an orphanage in Montreal, or from a hospital in Montreal. And so that made me head into to looking into the orphanages in Montreal. I came across this period of time. I did read a biography of an autobiography of a woman who spent her childhood in one of these orphanages. So, and of course, I found out that there are now many people that are survivors of the system that are have recently been looking for compensation from the government and from the Catholic Church, who ran the orphanages in Quebec
Mhm.
at the time. So there
Yeah.
was, but it was very fascinating. It was disturbing, but it was very fascinating, and I did. I was surprised that I knew so little about what had happened during those years.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm
Mm.
my husband Bob and I, we adopted our daughter in the 70s out of foster care. And I
Oh,
was startled by what the foster care system considered a good home,
yeah.
and she was 21 pounds. She was 2 years old and she weighed
Mm.
21 pounds. And they said she was from a good home. And I asked uh, the foster parents, tell us a little bit about her habits. Like, when does she wake up? When does she go out to play? And it turned out they kept her in her crib all day.
Oh, oh,
There's just so throughout all my
so
books, I have
sad.
threads of
Yes.
foster care and adoption is close to my heart, so I sprinkle it
Mm.
in my
Yeah,
book. So anyway, that's another reason why I just can't wait to read your book. So you have some beautiful covers.
I do. I
Show
do.
us your beautiful covers, because there are people out there that love covers.
And so do I. And as you know, since we share the same publisher, we have a wonderful cover designer, David King, and so I'm always ecstatic with everything that he produces. So this is Sins of the Fathers. This is the first one. Uh, the setting is Montreal, so we see the city of Montreal there. This is the other side. The setting is Gatineau
It's a
in
great book.
Quebec. But yeah, it's a beautiful cover. Unfortunately, I have not received my third book yet, but I can show you here. This is the cover. Do you see that one?
That is beautiful. The emotion of the child comes, the shadow and the
Mhm.
emotion comes across. A
Yeah,
stranger in the family.
I was very,
Yes.
very pleased with that. I love the covers.
Yeah. So, did you have any fun launch things? I mean, what are you doing
Um,
to launch your book
yeah,
besides me?
this is actually my seventh book that will be published. Um, and with the first ones, I would have a launch party and invite family and friends, and we'd make a party of it. Then, of course, the pandemic hit, and those things were taboo for a while, and I haven't gotten back into it. What I have been doing the past few years is reaching out on Facebook and social media, and I participate. Last year, I participated in a Christmas market at the end of November, and that I had a chance to meet people that knew I was there. They came to see me, they came to buy the books, and I found that has worked for me. Now, will I go back to my old ways of having the big launch party? Maybe I will, but for this year, I'm going to stick with what I've been doing the past few years. That worked. It worked for me.
It's so interesting that things that we took for granted before the pandemic. So when my first book came out, I had all kinds of visits marked, all the different places, lined up, all these in-person visits and all of that. And then, of course, the pandemic came, and two of my books came out during the pandemic. And so we did have to adapt and did have to find other ways. And interestingly, like you, I'm keeping all my new stuff. I'm not doing my old stuff. The things that came out of the pandemic that worked,
Yeah,
you
yep.
know.
It
I know
made
it
us
was
change
it was a
our ways.
yeah, we got many lessons out of the pandemic.
We
Many,
did.
many lessons.
Mm.
So I saw the coolest thing on Facebook on your it was either on our author group page or it was on your page, but it said, "Oh, I'm so excited. I have a novella coming out, and it's the prequel to Charlie and Sim." And I thought I was just so excited to see that. So tell us about this.
Well, it was an idea that I had. I wanted to do an introduction to the characters. So I wrote a prequel, a novella. It's about 25,000 words, so about half a book, a little bit less than half a regular sized book. And it's the story of Sim when he was in his late teens. Something that happened to him, it was a mystery that happened to him, an incident that shaped him, that helped to shape him and shape his career plans. So I had fun with that because it being a shorter book, it took less time to write, and it was fun to work in that format. I found.
Yeah.
And I spoke to Black Rose, and they said, yes, we'd like to publish it. But since it's a short novel, it will only come out on Kindle. It will not be available in print. But I have started writing the same format for Charlie's story. So I'm going to get those two done, and then I'll go back to writing full-length novels for a little bit. But yeah, that's my
I think
news.
that's so cool because people are interested once you're following a series and you like the characters. That's one of the reasons you follow the series. You like the writing and you like the characters, and then to get their backstory. And as writers, we always have to figure out the backstory when we're writing, but to turn that into a book is pretty cool. I'm excited for you about that. A
Thank you.
novella coming out. So that's coming out in December.
Beginning of December. I don't have a fixed date yet, but yes, plan is for the beginning of December. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So that gives you all time to read the book, read A Stranger. Oh, why did I just blank on the name of the book again?
Stranger in the Family.
Stranger in the Family, to read A Stranger in the Family. And then that probably will say, you know what, I should read the beginning of um, this series. And then you have this whole prequel. So
Mhm.
they have a lot of books to buy. That's, that's what I'm saying. So this is, what are you reading? What are you writing? And so we have to talk about reading.
Mm.
And I'm curious, was there a book or an author that helped shape you in some way, that had a real impact either on your writing or as a person?
Well, I may have mentioned this in a previous interview. I always mention that as a young reader, when I was a child and started to read novels, I was drawn to Agatha Christie, of course, the Queen of Mystery, and I really loved that genre from the time I was very young. As I got a little older, I was reading Sidney Sheldon and suspense novelists, so that became my go-to genre, let's say. Um, and I think that's what, when I started to write, that was why I gravitated towards writing in that genre. But that's not to say I don't read. I read all kinds of genres. I love to read, and I love to be open to anything new. And so, but I'd say those two authors were the ones my early influence. Even though I started writing later in life, they were my early influence. But I read all of their books, and I ate it up. And once I got through them, then I moved on to other authors that were similar.
Yeah.
That's what I
So
can.
is there something that you've read recently that you could recommend to our audience?
Well, I read a lot of novels from Black Rose writing authors. We have a lot of talented authors there. You've interviewed many of them. I know you interview authors that don't belong to Black Rose, but you have interviewed many of them. Um, and I love so many. I mean, we could talk for an hour about all the authors that I enjoy reading. I
True.
I love, I don't know if you've interviewed her. I think so, Gail Olmsted. Her
Oh, I love
Miranda
Gail.
Rights. Oh, I love her series. I love her style. It's a relaxed style. She takes humor and drama and just, it's such an entertaining read. And I've heard that she has another one in the works under contract. So that's good news. Edward Leahy, who writes police procedural mysteries, I enjoy his novels. They're well done, well written, gritty and intense. Another different style, but also very good. And of course, your novels are excellent. And I've got True Grace uh, that I've purchased recently, and I'm looking forward to reading it. There are just so many authors that I enjoy reading from Black Rose. That's basically all the ones that I've been reading lately are from Black Rose. I've hardly
Yeah.
strayed.
I read a lot of Black Rose Writers books, but I do in between. Like I just finished Lessons in Chemistry. Oh my goodness. Oh, you have to read this book. It's just amazing. And she's a debut author. I mean, she has a long history of writing. She had a writing career. This is her debut novel, Lessons in Chemistry. It's just amazing. And I intersperse between my dear writer friends and their books and other books, out in the world. So those are two. And True Grace, you'll find when you're reading True Grace that Grace likes Agatha Christie as well.
Oh, nice.
Yes,
Woman
she
after my
mentions it.
own heart.
She mentions it. So how can our audience, now that we've got them totally intrigued, how do they find you? How can they be in touch with you? How can they buy your books? How can they send messages to you, follow you?
Well, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, AJ McCarthy. Since we spoke last, my website has had a remodel. So it's ajacmccarthy.com, or you can find it by Googling AJ McCarthy. And the books, of course, are available Amazon, Barnes and Noble in paperback only, and on Black Rose Writing site, the trifecta of people who sell the books.
Yeah. Your publisher, Barnes and Noble, Amazon. So that's what you have to do. And we hope that you will read AJ's books, that you will write reviews. Reviews are so important to us. If you don't like a book, which is impossible, you'll love all of her books, but just in case, please don't write a review. That really harms a writer when somebody feels it necessary to complain about a book. Just, you could tell your friends, but you don't have to tell the world. But we love hearing from you. We love getting reviews from you. I hope that you will be in touch with AJ and tell her that you met her here. Until next time, see you next week. And what are you reading? What are you writing? Have a great week, everybody.